Something odd happened this year. As this video goes live, I can officially check off the final goal of 2024 and say I completed all of them. And it feels weird. Sure, you could make a case that I achieved my goals by constantly changing the project I was going to work on and the terms of how I completed it, such as in the case of my developmental goals, which started out as developing Marks of Lelira, or redeveloping it with a new take, changing it to Aetherial record and finally cracking that story, to apparently the super easy, barely an inconvenience, writing the second draft of my formerly known as my secret project, FateMarked outline. You could also say that I only achieved writing my goal of 55,000 words this year was because of the lack of parameters of how I went about doing it, because I did that by transcribing my first novel I ever wrote, Angelic Wars, Legend of the Godchild. Angelic Wars, book 1. But there was no parameters of how I did it. I just had to write 55,000 words. And I did. I actually wrote more than that. You could point out I also failed my goals this year, and I changed it so I could achieve it. And this, of course, I'm talking about my YouTube goal of posting 1 per month, 12 videos with not Skylar Grant podcast or YouTube short, by changing it to just post 12 videos for the year. And you're right, but I'd rather achieve this goal than get sad about it. And then there's the rare goal that remains throughout the entire year unaltered and gets achieved. And that, of course, is the publishing of all the episodes of the Skylar Grant podcast and my YouTube shorts. Technically, that was altered because that was supposed to be 80 YouTube shorts, and I changed it to a bonus goal, and I only had to post between 5 and 100 YouTube shorts. And I posted, I think, 10, maybe less than that. I don't know, but I still did. It's actually the only bonus goal I've achieved. And yes, this feels weird, because this time last year, I had to come before you and eat humble pie when I failed every goal I had for 2023, except one. The one goal I probably should have failed, which was post 15 YouTube shorts. Not only did I post 15 YouTube shorts, I posted like 50 of them. And I do feel good about I'm proud of myself for accomplishing this. But you know what? I could have failed every single goal I had for 2024 again, and 2024 would still have been a successful year, because what I realized this year is far more valuable than any box next to a goal I could check off. So welcome, interwebs, to my end of year review video. Less about goal reviews and more about the discoveries that changed everything for me this year. So buckle up for the unexpected journey that I had in 2024. If you go on to like this video, I would love it if you hit that like button. No. Smash that like button as a prayer to the holy algorithm. And subscribe to Got Running content. Now, let's dive into this very personal video. All right, let's travel back to the beginning of 2024, when I purposely set out to give myself only 2 goals for 2024. And that was to write a lot, a real lot, a ton of writing, and to redevelop Marks of Lelira. Now, in my goals for 2024 video, I did not actually state what the goal or how many words I wanted to actually write. It would take me about a month to settle on 55,000 words, even though I wanted to write a lot more than that. And I did. And you see, at that time, I was working on the End is Nigh series, which was going to be a vehicle for me achieving those 55,000 words. Now, this part I have to be kind of careful with, because in my first draft of the script for this video, this next portion went on way too long. So let me quickly summarize this next portion as best I can and get to the important parts. Around February, I hit a dead end, a block with End is Nigh. So I decided to move on to Skylar Grant rewrites, because with the Skylar Grant podcast, I had some ideas of how to fix this. I hit another block there. So I decided to move to another project, an old project under a different name, which has now been referred to as Rajara. This one, I had a different kind of block. Development on this novella was going really well. I really liked it. I really liked it. I was really enjoying it. And I was like, I can start writing this maybe shortly. Yeah. And if I get it done, because it's only a novella, I could probably get some editing done. Maybe even get it to the point where next year I could publish it. This is where we cue in the freak out. And I immediately jumped to a different project. This one got morphed into what I became known as my grand epic clash up. I even got some words written on this. It wasn't easy, it was hard. Sure, there were some times where I got some scenes down that were easy, but for the most part, it was a chore to write. Then on July 8th, I had a revelation. I had lost my passion for writing. Sure, I enjoyed and had passion for projects, but that was developing the projects. It was when it came to thinking about writing and asking maybe I should, the answer was clear. Oh, hell no. So I had to think about when was the last time I actually really enjoyed the process of putting words down on the page. You don't want to brace yourself here because it was over a decade ago. Crazy, right? You see, it was back when I was in the midst of writing Marks of Lelira, book 1. Or was it 2? Oh no, doesn't matter. One of those books for the 12th or 13,000th time.
Before I ruined it.
More on that later.
And since my revelation, I've been thinking about it. I've been wondering, why did I lose my passion? Because I had enjoyed and had passion for projects and everything since I gave up on Marks of Lelira. It was, again, mostly during the developmental process, but when I did write a novel here or there, a draft or two, the enjoyment kind of passed after the second or third attempt. It was only in the last few weeks I realized how much more there was to this revelation. I've still been suffering from some old, deep wounds that I didn't even realize were there, that I was also chasing after some old goals. One goal that is impossible to achieve. There have been many wounds that have been haunting me, you could say, and that I thought I've dealt with. All important, but it really comes down to 2 huge wounds that I never got over with. Marks of Lelira, missing my publishing deadline. Marks of Lelira was the first, kind of my second series that I actually developed and fleshed out far more than I ever thought I possibly could. This was less than a year from when I wrote my first novel ever, Angelic Wars: Legend of the Godchild. It was big for me to write that novel, which was supposed to be the first book of a series, but I could never really figure out how to link these episodic books with a grand narrative. So for the fact that I was actually able to take Marks of Lelira and do a series from the beginning to end was amazing. Hell, Marks of Lelira was also the series that I discovered I was a planner, not a pantser. Now you might think that's mind-blowing, and it kind of was. It was actually more mind-blowing than the fact that I had been planning a series since 2001. I know, crazy. And for those reasons, and probably other ones I don't know at the moment, I got super attached to Marks of Lelira. I mean, super attached. To the point where there was no discussion about what was going to be my debut book. Book 1 of Marks of Lelira was going to be that. Against all rhyme or reason, all advice given by more established writers or actual published authors who said write multiple books before you publish.
This was going to be the one.
It had to be.
So when I screwed up the series, when I was trying to fix it back in 2012.
Was it 2013?
Honestly, it doesn't matter there. In December 2014, in the middle of writing book 2 of now a 6-book series instead of an 8, I realized I had no interest in continuing to write this thing. I was going through some personal shit at that time, which was part of the reason. But because of that, it helped me really reflect on my thoughts on the series and the changes I've made. And the realization was the series was broken.
I broke it.
And if I try to fix it again, I would do the same thing I did many times before. I would take a few months off, come up with a brand new, brilliant way to fix the
series.
Come back in, take that answer, force fit it in what I have, all so I could get to the writing and not really fix anything and break it even more. I needed time, a lot of time away. And back then, I would say to myself, I need like a decade before I can come back to fix this series. I didn't really mean a decade. Decade was just a word I used to express that I needed a lot of time away. It was a few years later that I said to myself,
No, I like this idea of having a decade away.
it would put me around 2 years away from when I'd be 20 years out, and it would be kind of cool to come back to that and publish something on the 20th anniversary of starting the series. You see, I knew that was the right move. But now, 10 years later from when I gave up on Marked Lelira, I can see how much that, you see, I moved my publishing date for that project. I originally wanted to publish something in 2012, but I moved it from 2012 to 2016 when I fixed the series in 2012.
Or 2013.
Giving up in 2014 gave me only 2 years to come up with something else and get it written so I can meet my publishing deadline. My answer eventually became the Veil trilogy. And honestly, this was never gonna happen. It was just not. Honestly, I think deep down inside, I still wanted Marked Lelira to be my first book I ever published. Editing Tim jumping in here. As of this year, my original goal to develop Marked Lelira, I think in the back of my head, the whole plan was always to have my first book be whatever I came up with a new story for 2026. I was going to delay until I had something from Marked so it could be my first published book. When I gave up on Marked Lelira, I did not give myself the time I needed to really work through this huge defeat. No, I decided to push through and work on something else so I can meet that deadline. I didn't. So let's talk about the second wound, missing that deadline. July 7th, 2016 was my deadline for publishing Marked Lelira, Clock of Ages, book 1 of Marked Lelira. Kind of, but not really. As long as I published a book in 2016, I achieved the deadline. But July 7th, 2016 was my preferred publishing time because that's the date I generally associate with when I started working at Marked Lelira. So you'd think when I gave up working on Marked Lelira at the end of 2014, I would pick a brand new deadline, you know, to allow time for me to find my new project.
Nope.
I was publishing something in 2016. You see, I had already moved my deadline once. And back then, I saw if I moved it again, I would just keep moving it to accommodate whatever came up. I had to publish, and I was going to publish something in 2016.
Spoiler alert.
Is it a spoiler when at the end of the last section, I said I didn't?
I didn't.
I tried hard. But there's a thing. There's a little bit of an issue. When the book you're going to hopefully publish, you don't start until about almost a year from when you stopped writing your last book. Finish the first draft 3 months into 2016, the year your deadline is in. Take a few months off, knowing you had to cut a lot of words out of the next draft, and then lose track of how many words you count, only to realize you may have not actually cut out that many words. You decide immediately, starting over, this draft will be a minimal. That draft gets finished with 1, maybe 2, 3 months before your deadline, the end of the year. So you come to the point of realizing, I'm not gonna meet this deadline. Surely now we'll make a new deadline so I can have plenty of time to make the changes and edits raw. See, I just need to get it done and out as soon as I possibly can. Seeing Through the Veil. That book, I kid you not, I would write 4, 5, maybe even 6 times before I just said, I'm done with this series for now. I've ruined another one. I'm moving on to something else. At the end of 2017, rushed through writing not only that book for the final time, but the next 2 books in the trilogy, all before it was ready. This would become a trend for the next foreseeable few years. Rushing through projects before I was ready or even knew what I wanted from the project. I'm looking at you, Truthsayer. all in my desperate attempt to get something out there, something published. Starting this channel only enhanced that desire to get something published. Maybe not right away, as soon as I realized people want to actually watch advice videos on someone who has published or is about to publish. So this only enhanced my desire to get something out there. I wanted to be seen as legit. Like with Marks of Lelira, I didn't take the time I needed to work through another huge failure. I just plowed ahead, chasing that publishing goal in my endless self-sabotage. It wasn't just the current writing project I was working on, developing, or actually writing. Other things took effect, like my multiverse series was affected by that in many ways. More on that later. Not dealing with one huge wound, I could see it would cause problems, but something you could deal with. You could get work done. Add 2, how'd I get as much as I got done? I don't know. Even with me self-sabotaging. How I got anything done with 3 huge wounds?
I don't know.
I'm aware at the beginning of this section I said there were 2 huge wounds. And I meant that. But it was while writing this script, I realized there was a 3rd one. One I didn't even think could be a wound. Until I started thinking about it. And I was thinking about it because it was something I was already going to talk about in the next section. But I thought about it and like, no, this is another wound that I never got past. And that wound was not a 3rd, but my 1st, the original huge wound. And that wound was not getting published as an early 20-something who was still in college. Not even published, a bestseller on their debut who was still in college. As I said, I was going to talk about this in the next section on outdated dreams I'm still chasing. So let's talk about it there. I have to say, it's a little shocking to find that I'm still chasing outdated dreams in 2024. I mean, not really, because in a sense, because I really want to. Well, not one, because I really want that one. But in many ways, I'm still trying to chase after the impossible dream of being an early 20-something debut author who hits the New York Times bestselling list while still in college. This is absolutely shocking. Like, it's not even mind-blowing. It's just shocking that I'm still trying to achieve this dream, especially since it's impossible. I'm 41 months away from being 42. Well, trying to be the next big breakout author is one thing, but trying to achieve a dream that is impossible is it's whack and it's crazy. And honestly, I could see when I went back to school in 2011 for another degree was an attempt to keep this dream going on longer. Sure, I was nearly 30 years old. I graduated my first college in 2008, December 2008, officially killing my dream. The dream, or as I call a delusion in my Art of Failure series, was being 22. But I was 25, which wasn't that far off. It was okay. And how many 25-year-old debut authors can you name that hit the New York Times bestseller list? So it was close, okay? But to keep that dream alive, going back to school, kind of helped that, even though I was closer to 30. I was still in college. And it shouldn't have been that much of a big deal. You achieve some dreams, you don't achieve other dreams, okay? But when I think back on it, no, I lived that. That was my reality. There was no doubt in my mind that's who I was. That was my destination. And I don't think it really affected me at the time because I was so entrenched in Marks of Lelira at that point. It didn't really hit me all that much because I was really engulfed in that series. While my first publishing date was in 2012, I had these vague memories, thoughts, impressions, something that's really there that was the first time I moved it. I moved it from another date to 2012, which would make sense by failing to publish in 2016. It being the second time I moved my date has even more of an impact. What my first publishing date could be, I have no clue. I just know I have a really strong sense in my core that I did move it, and I want to say sometime in 2009. I'm not sure, but there's something just in me that says I moved it one day to another date in 2012, and then so I moved it twice. Not fulfilling that dream, in the fact I'm still trying to fulfill it day is just maddening. I mean, again, I'm 41. It's long gone. I've got to accept I'm in my middle years of my life. And that's okay that I didn't achieve that dream. Sometimes you do achieve some dreams, and other dreams you don't. I gotta accept that. Honestly, that reality that I created for myself was more about the destination than the journey. And I love my journey. Sure, there's things I would like to have turned out a little bit differently, lessons I would love to learn sooner. And the fact that I'm learning still to this day is a good thing. But if I achieved that destination, I don't know if I would have. So, and it's time to acknowledge that dream is dead. It's not gonna happen. I gotta move on. And it's time I might have to move on from another old dream. And that I've been chasing. Grand, interconnected, multiverse series is also known as what I refer to as Aetherial record. I've always liked this idea of an interconnected universe of stories. How like Stephen King's world universe or multiverse is interconnected. You have some universes that have several different books in it, and others are separate. They're all linked through the Dark Tower series. I've loved the Kingdom Hearts series and how they made Disney characters in worlds interesting to play through Sora, Donald Duck, and Goofy. And then at the time, if you taken the series I was reading, which was DJ McHale's Pendragon series, which I always thought would have been better if each territory had its own story or series before Pendragon came out, would have made it even better than it already was. Take all that, and in 2007, maybe 2008, huge idea. Immediately, all my story worlds were now connected together, which at the time I think I had like 4 or 5 at the time. But it wouldn't be until 2012 where I would really make an impact, where I would really start to figure this out, and then immediately hit a wall due to personal things. That became the trend for it. In 2015, I'd make a next big breakthrough with the World of 5 Worlds. 2016, maybe 2017, I would hit another big one with Shattered Worlds. 2019, I would come up with Aetherial record. And in 2021 through 2022, come up with the Children of Origins and Beginnings, all this. Each one, great. If what I just said doesn't make any sense, let me put it this way. It's simple. It's been a work in progress for a very long time, and a lot longer than I originally thought. You see, in the summer of 2019, I made a connection. You see, Children of Origins, which has been the behind the scenes and always has been the planned behind the scenes stories of this multiverse from the beginning. And that was just me trying to tell my original story that I've been trying to tell since 2001 in my Forbidden Realm anime series, which blew my mind. The biggest problem with this series, with Forbidden Realm and Children of Origins, and just overall the multiverse thing, is I can never figure out what I wanted from it. All those years I said where I made strides in it was getting me in the right direction of where I wanted to go after the big hiccup and change from 2012. But there's this one problem. As much as I want all my characters in worlds to be interlinked and have character crossover with them, I need to have a theory record done first before I can do anything else, because I'm just not very good currently at weaving a tale between established events. I need to plan them all out ahead of time. With no firm plan with this series, and mounting pressure from the Cosmere turning out way better than most people probably thought for Brandon Sanderson, it's time I make a decision. Do I want to spend another, maybe possibly a few more years trying to crack this story, or work on something where I could get written and published? And I think I have to do that, because as much as I want to tell the story, my dream has always been publishing, nothing else. And it's not to say I won't ever write Children of Origins or their full Aetherial record story. It just might have to come later. Like I said, I'm not good currently at weaving a tale between established events. In the future, when I'm a far better writer, that could be different. I could have a better understanding, especially if I have ideas a way I could cross someone over while working on a series and make note of that. It comes down to I have to stop chasing one thing so I can achieve the one I really want to achieve, and that is publishing. Due to a secret project, I have discovered my passion for writing. And because of that project, I think it's actually helped me with these realizations. It was a secret project, and now that it's out there and known, it's time to call it by its designation that I gave it, FateMarked. Why is FateMarked different from other projects? It did something that others weren't. It was able to break me out of my funk and really reignite my passion for writing. And I think part of it comes from the fact that it reminds me a lot of Mark's Lelira back in 2006 to 2007 when I was really engaged in the story. I was excited for the story. I really wanted to crack the story. I really had some cool ideas for it. It was exciting. But I honestly think it was the emotional core for both. You see, Mark's Lelira was a way for me to kind of deal with emotional baggage from middle school and away, for at least for FateMarked, it was about dealing with the story is the love of father for his daughter and what he would do, which comes from wrestling. To be clear, it's a wrestling documentary. You see, I was watching WWE's A&E's biography on the late Eddie Guerrero. The part where he talks about, after getting clean, the love for his daughters and what he would do for them really struck me. And I actually came up with an idea while watching it. I wrote it down in my idea journal. I'm going to read it to you right now. Project, untitled, July 30th, 2024. The story of a man down the dumps and the lengths he will go to get his daughters back after they've been kidnapped. He doesn't believe he can do it, but no one else will. Other ideas. His daughters manage to escape and help rescue him. In the end, the three of them have to come together to take down the villain. This is in a fantasy world. And the final one was a father helped with the kidnapping of his daughters, only to find out and killed. Comes back to fix his mistakes. I have no clue why I put killed in there, but that's what it says. My pitch for the story became John Wick meets Taken, but in a fantasy world. The emotional core of the story kind of struck me. Maybe because I've always wanted to have daughters and having no kids myself, no kids of my own. But if I was as skilled as John Wick or Miles from Taken and my daughters were kidnapped, I would go apeshit on them. Now, I'm not gonna go through every step of the process of the journey of fleshing out FateMarked. Let me put it this way. The first few weeks were good, but the brainstorming didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I had some good things, had some magic system, didn't come out the way I really wanted it to, but I didn't have one thing. I knew exactly how I wanted to start this story and a vague idea of where I wanted to go with it. So to help from stumbling and just randomly and just being like, I'm done, I'm waiting months before I work on the project again, I said, let me work on what I know I want, which is what I do in Mark's Lelira. When I hit a stumbling block, I worked on things I knew and fleshed those out. And another way is I took an old method of planning out a synopsis for each of the 8 books from Mark's Lelira. I decided to do here. I just decided to do it by pen and paper. So I decided, let's start with the story. I know I wanted to start. Let me just flesh this out. So I decided, okay, let's write down sections of ideas of what a portion of the story, of things that I would want in there. I had to write 1 to 2 sentences in each section. That's all. Start with the prologue, went good. From there on, it changed. I would go on to write 1 to 2 paragraphs for each section. And the story would morph as new ideas would come. Though I like this, I would see where it take me. It was the first draft of the story. It was gonna be fluid, and I can always go back and foreshadow or remove it, but it was awesome. It really got me into the story and really excited, like super excited. Like by the time I was done, I had 16 sections, including a prologue and an epilogue, and over 20 pages of synopsis. That's where the old habit comes in. And ironically, wasn't rushing it because I knew I was ready to write it. I couldn't cram this new idea with the old ideas because it's a brand new idea. It actually came with indecision. You see, Kato, the main character, starts off as a druggie. Over the first few sections, he overcomes it until tragedy strikes and he dives hard back into it. But for the same reason why he was a druggie in the first place. The exact same reason. And as much as I think you can make that work, not for this one, or I just didn't want it for this. I was on a parallel, how do I do this? I had to work on my second draft of the story for my development goal for 2024. And I had 3 things I had to achieve in this outline. Foreshadow, decide if Kato's daughters would have a POV scenes and then flesh those out if they were, and then condense the number of sections from down. Not delete, just condense down so I didn't have 16. When I was looking at this, I realized the story I wanted to tell was in the first 3 sections and section 5. And then, idea. Novella, baby. As great as this, I'm excited for this story, and I have options to develop for this. I can't give FateMarked all the credit for my returning passion for writing. You see, transcribing my first novel also helped. As much as I'd love to dive into the transcribing part here, I would just make this video already longer than it already is. What led me to transcribe Angelic Wars, Legend of the Godchild. Angelic Wars, Book 1. Wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for some super paranoid editing Tim pumping in here. What I'm trying to say here is, back in 2007, I put encryption on the PDF of the draft of Godchild. And it turns out to be that's the only thing I have remaining of my original novel. So I have to transcribe it, and having to write 55,000 words in 2024, and writing new prose was not working at the time. I figured, you know what? I'll just use this as to achieve that goal, since my goal didn't say I had to be 55,000 new prose. I just had to write 55,000 words. So, and while I was trying my best to keep this a word-for-word copy, there were times I found myself cleaning it up. In the middle of this, and my excitement for writing FateMarked grew, and also the desire for me to fully rewrite / re-envision Godchild in a way sprung up. The fear was gone, it seemed. The fear of writing was gone. All my worries that I've had for the last 4 projects seemed gone. They were just not there. As much as I wanted credit FateMarked for slowly returning my passion for writing, I don't necessarily think I'd be where I was if it wasn't for me transcribing Godchild. When I set my goals for 2024, I set goals that would be easy to accomplish and probably didn't need a full year. But after the disaster of 2023, where I failed every goal but the one goal I should have failed, I needed a win, a big win. A huge win. And looking back, I didn't get it. I'm confident to say I didn't get it. Because I got a gigantic win. With all the realizations, self-reflection, discoveries, on top of achieving all my goals for 2024, it was a gigantic win. I stand by my statement at the beginning of this video. If I failed all my goals, but this happened still, it still was a win for me. The point that I now have my passion back for writing, and not just because I had nothing else. I want to write, with the story of FateMarked ready, getting closer to start writing, if I haven't started already. Hopefully this will be a turning point in my writing career when I look back on this in 20 years. As the turning point where I actually got my shit together and got stuff out there. And started having the journey of an author versus someone who wants to be an author. I know this video is very long, and if you watched all the way through it, I thank you for going on this journey with me and this self-reflection. Longer than I wanted it to be, but I really wanted to dive deep into this and do something different than just going over my goals. Since you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love it if you'd go on and smash that like button as a prayer to the holy algorithm, and subscribe because I got writing content on this channel. Speaking of my content, it'll be on screen now. Best thing for you. Click it and we'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.